Okay.
But feel free though.
Well, let me see if I can remember the 5 deals we announced off the top of my head. We have the new liquor store in the location of the old grog shop. We have a new organic deli market coming in the location of the old pizza store / fish store. They're proposing to combine the spaces. We are close to inking a deal with Europan, which is a sort of lunch, soup, salad, bread, bakery kind of place.
So that one's not definite?
No,
it's not like
yeah, we're negotiating with them, and it appears likely, but we have not inked that one yet. And then we have, so what is that? That's 3. We have the child school, who is, we have not closed a deal with them yet, but you know they have. We're in advanced negotiations with them for the 2nd floor of 504 Main Street, which is the old school building. You're shaking your head because
it's a conflict of interest.
Oh, okay. That's a separate story.
Well, that's why a lot of us are here, though. We want to hear that separate story.
Okay.
Well,
And then Subway sandwiches for this. That one's not closed. We haven't closed that one yet, but we're very close to.
What space?
513, the old Julie's Sports Bar.
Julie's.
Yeah. Yeah.
On Jordan, of course.
In
Rivercross.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you're concerned there's a conflict of interest because Sal's on the board of REAC, or?
Yes, he is on the board, and it is a conflict of interest to be on the board and to be negotiating real estate on your behalf, particularly when you have contracts or money coming from the state itself. So
Okay,
that's an issue that will be dealt with.
Yeah, I can't comment on his position as a
Right.
board member because I only know him as a tenant, really.
Right, and that's the other thing. He is a tenant, and he's a board member, and that's a conflict of interest.
Look, I'm not going to comment on that, so.
I know.
All I can tell you is that we have the sole discretion on all leasing. The board does not have any influence on any leasing decisions we make. In fact, I think the board specifically structured the whole master sublease like that to.
It might be worth it, though, to hold off on that to find out what the governor's going to think of that, because you could lose a tenant that way, too.
Andrew, a question that arises there is that Hudson Related is going to be asking for various kinds of favors and dispensations with regard to Southtown number 7, or Riverwalk, I guess. Do you have a name for it yet? No, nothing yet.
Riverwalk
Okay.
7.
Then you're going to be asking for those things from the REAC board, so that, you know, that's one of the conflicts that arises almost immediately, since he's a REAC board member and would be in a position to vote on that or not. That is a conflict that could come up there. One of the things that was missing from the press release were real numbers, and I gather, given the fact that you haven't got signatures on leases, you don't really have final numbers yet. Is that right?
In terms of rents
Yeah.
that we're getting, on the leases we've inked, we're getting $45 a square foot.
Uh-huh. And is that true of child school as well?
Well, no, we haven't inked that one, and no, that's not the rent that they'll be paying. But it's a totally different space. It's not a ground floor retail space. It's a 2nd floor, kind of non-prime location.
Fabulous space.
It's more like an office type space to
Yeah.
us, you know.
And that's 7,000 square feet, right?
Yes.
Is there an anticipated date as to when the tenants that you have signed leases with will be opening up, will start construction and be opening up?
I believe our guy who's taking over 530, 532 started work this week to start clearing out the space. So.
Which one is that?
That's the gourmet deli market. So I haven't, it's only Wednesday, but I heard on Monday.
Is that the organic?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
And what was in that space before?
That's the old fish store and pizza store.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The combination.
Yeah. So I haven't seen it personally, but I did hear that he has the keys and he started clearing out the space.
He did start clearing out.
Yeah,
I saw yesterday.
Yeah.
Two things I'd like to. So I also understand that the trellises that's not 100%.
We have a handshake with Kay at Trellis to give him a lease extension.
Okay,
but
but
it's
when
not-
I was reading, I was sort of under the impression that everything that was stated was like, were agreements, and then I started to hear one by one
Yeah, I
that
mean,
some of them weren't.
We announced deals that we feel like have been negotiated to a certain extent, but only, like I mentioned, only the liquor store and the organic deli have actually, we actually have signed leases, you know.
Go ahead, finish.
The other thing, well, okay, you know, although we met once before and we came up with a bunch of questions, I think a lot of things that are being said here, I just want you to realize that it may not be the full group's opinion. I think that people are just talking about what's important to them and their concerns. So I have another perspective in regard to Mr. Ferreira and the child's school, in that my concern about all of Main Street, that Mr. Ferreira does have a lot of different locations on the older, you know, the older section of Roosevelt Island. And one of my concerns is that because he is in better shape than a lot of the other store owners and possible, you know, new people coming onto the island, that it would be easier for him to get prime space and locations. You know, whoever's going to come with the money, if it's a reasonable situation and business, I understand that you're going to go forward. My concern is that he is eating up space on Main Street. He has a lot of areas already. His kids are all over in our parks, and which is fine. But I'd like that to be considered, especially, you know, Cornell's going to have one whole area of you know, of a school, university, and Mr. Ferreira is looking for more and more space, and I don't want all of Main Street to become the child's school. So I would just, I mean, it's, you know, making money on stores is one thing, but we also have another issue of our concerns of Main Street in our community and where we live and how we live. So that's
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that the second floor of 504, we never considered as a retail space. To us, it's more of like an office space. Some other uses we considered would be like a green desk, you know, commuter, like a freelancer office space. We still may have space for them on the first floor of 504, especially if you know, we have not gotten a commitment from the library for anything. So
It'd be nice if you could put practice rooms on some of that space. Practice rooms for musicians.
In where in 504?
Wherever the green desk spaces. I don't know.
You know, anything's
I mean,
possible. We
and
don't.
that's the thing is, there are other needs besides Sal Ferreira's needs for
Okay.
the school.
So-
And that's a real problem for us. I mean, there are a lot of people on the island whose needs are not going to be met because he's sucking up space.
Mhm.
And he has this issue with his affiliations, his affiliation with the state, and getting state money, and sitting on a board, and making real estate decisions or not. As a non-resident sitting on that board, well, you don't know, the resident, non-resident thing doesn't mean anything to you, but his sitting on the
No,
board.
I know what you mean.
But his sitting on that board making decisions, or, you know, seeming to make decisions that you guys may have to go along with to get other stuff that you want from that board. That's a real problem. And so that space that's being rented to him at whatever market rate you're calling market rate, is coming to him without consideration to the rest of the community. That's a real concern.
When you
And
say
I
when you say without consideration of the rest of the community, let me maybe you could back up a little bit, and let me describe the way we make our decisions about the retail leasing. First of all, you know, we took over 100,000 square feet of space, 12,000 of which is in 504. So that that portion of the retail premises although it looms large in the public imagination, is a relatively small portion of what we've actually taken over. There are a couple of other kind of non-retail-y spaces, like I'm thinking of Dayspring Church, which happens to be part of our master sublease, which is not really a retail space. Things occupied by public safety and REOC, are for now not retail spaces. They may eventually move somewhere else. We have no idea, but so as far as the retail premises overall goes, we look at Main Street, and the first thing we see are 12 or 15, old vacant stores, some of which have never been occupied. We see it as a retail corridor. We're looking for a good mix of retailers to bring, just the basic conveniences. That's why, a liquor store, more food options. That's the first thing that we're looking for. A pet store. We would love to bring a pet store to the island, stuff like that.
And we still need a bakery, even though there's
Exactly,
bakeries.
right, there's probably still more room for more bakery options, maybe more like, coffee type options, that's the kind of stuff we're thinking about. Even more food, of different types of food.
Ben and Jerry's.
Ben and Jerry's would be great, it'd be hard to get them here. But I think there's a,
Community oriented.
what's that?
They're community oriented.
I think there's a perception that I'm hearing here is that we can pick and choose who we bring to the island. That's not the case. We have to work with who's willing to open a store on the island. And there are, we've gotten 1,000 calls from people willing to open liquor stores, but for example, it's very hard to find someone willing to open a pet store because they feel like there's not enough foot traffic. It's hard for us to find someone who wants to open, like certain types of restaurants that we would love to have in. We think a burrito joint would be great, but it's been hard for us to find an operator. We think an ice cream joint would be fantastic, and we are talking to some, but they're looking for a type of foot traffic that just doesn't exist here. They're looking for.
How do they judge whether there's foot traffic? We've had a bakery that sold ice cream cones, and then they went away, but it wasn't because they weren't doing the business. It wasn't because they weren't doing the business. They did the business, and whatever mismanagement was going on from REOC's end.
Well, our new tenants don't know anything about that.
Right, I understand, but
we and our brokers look for experienced operators who have experience in the city, who maybe have at least 1 or 2 other stores. They know what they're doing, who can start a business on day one, who can fund themselves without too much headache, and without barking up our tree too much for improvements to the space, because the spaces are small and the rents are relatively low, really.
Have you found a lot of interest or lack
We
of
get,
interest?
like I said, we got a ton of interest for the liquor store, deli, bakery type interest. We're still talking to them, and then I got to say, a lot of people call us with $1 and a dream, but they've never opened a store before. They don't really know Roosevelt Island, or maybe they live on the island and they just want to open something, but they don't really know what. So, unless we have some confidence that they're going to make it and they know what they're doing and they're going to be a good fit, then it's going to be less likely.
What about like?
I had a question.
Real restaurants, other than just small, like a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, initially we did talk to one vendor who wanted a real sort of sit-down restaurant. He kind of went away because of financing problems. The other food vendors I've mentioned are the ones who've shown us interest. But that said, we think there's still room for more.
What kind of experience, the people that you're bringing in, or at least at this point think you're bringing in, for the liquor store, what kind of experience have they had? Do they have a store elsewhere? Do they have?
Yeah, the guy who's opening the organic deli is the same guy who's opening the liquor store, and he's in his career he's opened like 40 different stores, and he's sold many of them as they've become mature and
Because the liquor
stabilized.
store that was there before was awful, and the prices were very high. I mean, he's going to be in competition with KH&H at Costco,
That's,
which is
he
good.
understands that.
So I just want to know that if we're getting somebody who actually knows what they're doing.
He has run liquor stores before. He does not own one today because he's sold them before, but, you know, as far as his experience goes, we're confident he's experienced.
I've got a question. I was glad to see that there was an arrangement made with the Riva Gallery.
Yeah.
Is that graven in stone? Is that a big?
No, that's not in stone yet. We have a handshake with Revo.
Okay. As you probably know, there's a fund that REOC offers, called the Public Purpose Fund, and that RERA administers. We do the allocations. We were able to give RERA a certain amount of money, but nothing near what they're going to need to pay what's been announced as the rental for them. I know it's a reduced rate, but this is an organization that's never had to raise money before for any purpose, much less rent and utilities. My question is, as they gear up to be able to do that, will you be able to give them some slack in the early days while they learn how to do something they've never had to do?
Well, we discussed a couple options with Tad. One was stepping up the rent slowly over a few years from what we consider pretty low rent to ending up closer to, like, not even market, but like some portion of market rent. And then the other option we discussed with him is just keeping a flat rent, because maybe that's just easier for him to manage, you know, we don't know. But it's still in his court, you know.
We had such a limited amount of money to allocate that we were only able to cover the first couple of months of whatever deal they signed with you. After that, they're going to have to be on their own. And I think they're fairly confident that they can do it, but I just want to be assured that they will be given some leeway as they learn how to take on this new job.
Yeah, evicting any current tenants is not our first priority, you know.
Will the gallery be paying more money than Sal Ferreira on the second floor, per square foot?
On a square foot basis, yeah, I think so. But I'm not sure.
Can you describe the product offerings at the organic grocer? What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, the comparable store, and you can look this up, is Columbus Natural Deli. It's on the Upper West Side. I don't remember the exact address, but in his lease, we're holding him to that standard. From what I recall, that store has, you know, it's a small deli focused on packaged goods, you know, things like yogurt, chips, organic stuff like hummus. He will be doing a relatively modest kind of deli counter salad and sandwich operation. That I'm not sure how much of that portion of it will be organically focused. Within the constraints of the Gristedes exclusive on supermarket uses in Roosevelt Island, he's allowed to do a certain square footage of fresh fruit and produce and certain fresh foods within a sort of limited square footage. So I would say that you're looking at I don't know if you've ever been to like an Amish market or something like that, but sort of.
Farmers market.
No, that's a specific store.
It's
That's a name.
It's a small market. It's not a supermarket. It's a couple thousand square feet.
It's quite nice though. The ones I've seen.
In the 40s?
There's a few of them.
The one I'm thinking of is actually in downtown Manhattan, but you know they have sort of higher end prepackaged foods. They focus on you'll be less likely to find a bag of Doritos and a Coke there, and more likely to find organic drinks and a bag of pita chips or something like that.
Will they be seating? Will they be seating within the premises?
We haven't seen his plans, but I imagine he'll probably have a few seats.
Right now, the only restaurant I would take a guest to the island to is Fuji East. It's very nice, the food is good, the people are very pleasant, the prices are reasonable. Something comparable to that is, it seems to me, given the demographics, changing demographics of the island, would do well. So I hope that's something that you're considering.
Yeah, we're still open to food uses. you know, another sit-down restaurant would be great. You know, could be, it could, you know, we've talked to a whole bunch of different people, you know, Greek restaurants from Astoria have called us.
We have somebody who runs a Greek restaurant who lives on the island, who apparently hasn't been able to connect with your guys, as well as our Hoboken Farms, which wanted a space
Yeah, I
and
think we
could
talked to
well
both.
afford to do it.
I'm not sure I'm not sure that the first person you're mentioning, is that Constantine?
Yes.
Yeah, we've spoken with Constantine, and we didn't seem to be able to come to a deal. But, and then I think we actually did reach out to Hoboken Farms, but we just, at the time we spoke with them.
Because I know he runs several shops in New Jersey.
Mhm.
And he has a great stand out here at the farmer's market every Saturday.
Andrew, just a question.
Can I just add to that, because it's on the exact same vein?
Sure.
Before we change.
You didn't finish about Hoboken Farms, though. You were in the middle
Well,
of the
I
sentence.
think we've talked to him, I mean, our broker does all the talking, so speaking from memory, I believe that we have spoken with him, and it didn't seem like a deal was likely.
Did Brad say you that he'd spoken? I thought he was.
He said he was not getting his phone calls returned.
Oh,
That's what he
really?
told me.
Yeah.
Okay. I can remind our broker, you know, to call him back.
My question is along these lines, but go ahead.
Oh, it is, yes.
Yeah, to know, because let me just backtrack for a second. So our first meeting, this is our second meeting of the group. Our first meeting was just to come together and kind of voice what our concerns and objectives were. One of them, and so we have a list of things. One of them was concerns with Winnick and their responsiveness to lease inquiry. So that was going to be my question. Do they actually do the vetting for you, or do they just turn over names and numbers to you, and you guys actually make the?
No, I mean, the process is we want everybody to call Winnick, and he should be doing the initial sort of reality check on whether this is a tenant that would be a good fit and
Something
could be viable.
Has he been here? Does he know this community?
Yes, he's been here. He did all the leasing here in Riverwalk.
Yes, but that's Riverwalk. Has he been to the other part of the community? Has he come out on a Saturday to the farmer's market to meet the guys at the Hoboken Farm
I don't
guys?
know.
Or see-
Because we have heard that they're not responding
Yeah.
to calls.
And these are folks that we're interested in too.
Well, I'm dismayed to hear that. He should be responding to every call. Do you know, if you have any specifics, I'd be happy to follow up.
I gave some specific suggestions to David Kramer, and I don't know if he's reached out to them or not. I have the
Yeah.
names of the people. For Le Pain Quotidien is one.
Mhm.
I don't even remember the other one, but there were some ice cream stores, you know, yogurt stores and so on. But also Angels was interested in coming here a few years ago. They wanted the
Well,
504 space actually, but they were very interested in
But
coming.
Angels is no more.
Oh, really? They're out of
No,
business?
it's a
Well-
new name and it's a different.
Well, they're not on
different
First
owner.
Avenue. Well, they're not on First Avenue, but I think they still exist.
They
But
are on
the-
First Avenue, they're in a different
Oh.
location.
I mean, all I can say is it's definitely Winnick's job to follow up on every lead, and I don't want to hear that he hasn't been returning calls. That's not what he's supposed to be
Well,
doing, is it?
it sounds as if anybody has talked to anybody that has not had responsiveness in this regard. They should either let Andrew, you could let me know, and I'll forward it to him, or you can probably contact Andrew directly, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know if I have any cards, but,
Yeah.
you know, my email address, if you want to write this down, is ajackson@hudsonink.com, AJACKSON.
Okay, I'll have Brad,
HudsonInc.com, HUDSONINC.
I'll have Brad Finkel get it for you.
Sure.
So in terms of what we talked about, the possibility a while ago with 504 as far as office space, so that none of that, any interest, nothing?
We had a little
hands
nibble from a
out?
green office space, but nothing specific yet.
You're talking about $100,000 a year for that space, right?
Not the whole space. I don't think they'd take the whole space.
But for the entire space,
Which floor? The first floor?
second floor.
First floor is dedicated to the libraries.
Well, it would be dedicated to the library if we got a commitment from them.
We're hoping that.
Before the
Space.
second floor, just to stay on that for a moment,
Yeah.
it's about 100,000 we're looking for, right? 100 to 130, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's, we're in that ballpark.
Is there anything that we can do to expedite the library? It's a desperate need in the community.
Yeah, I mean, we think,
money raised
we think it
already for the
would
city
be a great
council.
fit, but we can't, you know, and it just makes all the sense in the world for the library to move there, and then all, their space in 526 is very compromised.
Have you worked through
But
city
they-
council at all?
Yeah, I would suggest you talk to Jessica Lappin. Yeah, because she, the library was looking to her for some city council funds, and that's the last we heard.
Yes, those have been realized.
Some city.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the last we heard
Those are
was
promised.
not that, so, you know, it could be the library calls us tomorrow and say, hey, you know, we got the dollars, let's go, but
So
we haven't
will
heard that yet.
you hold off for a while?
I mean, we've held off for 9 months so far, we have not marketed the space to anybody else. And we've gotten offers that we've just put on the back burner until we figure out what's going on with the library.
So why do you see the second floor so undesirable?
It's not desirable for a retail tenant, let me put it that way. There's no, I mean,
Why?
Workable for a restaurant.
it could be, I mean, retail tenants want to be right on the sidewalk, they want to have frontage, they want
foot
walk-in
traffic.
business, they want signage right on the street, they want to put out their sandwich boards, you know, they want to be visible from the street.
What about a restaurant upstairs?
I suppose anything's possible, but we haven't talked to any restaurants who are interested.
Have you shown that to them as a possibility?
You know, we've shown them we have 12 other vacant spaces.
Is the infrastructure in there adequate for a restaurant?
It used to be a cafeteria for Blackwell School. Used to be the
Yeah,
cafeteria
I
for
mean,
PS two
didn't know that.
seventeen.
35 years ago, there was a working cafeteria, it's
Yeah,
not, it's
very
not.
active.
But there's gas, electric, all of that.
Yeah.
There's been some concern about a lack of a full-service.
Let me just clarify, the utilities in this space have not been actively used in decades, from what I understand,
Yeah.
so there's no,
But they're there,
but they could be undersized, they could be obsolete, we haven't really studied it in terms of a
We know
restaurant
what you have,
use.
yeah.
There's been concern expressed about a lack of a full-service pharmacy on Roosevelt Island, that Dwayne Reed and both Christie's are really inadequate. Have you been looking into that at all?
No, because Christie's has an exclusive for pharmacy use in Northtown, and Dwayne Reed has an exclusive in Southtown.
So it's not possible then to
When you
have.
say full service, is there a specific service that's lacking, or?
There are people that have been saying that there's not enough stock of various medicines at the different pharmacies, and that they are hoping to have more of a dedicated pharmacy on Roosevelt Island than what is currently existing.
Right now, Christie's has an exclusive for pharmacy use in Northtown.
What about some of the architectural changes that you've been considering for the arcade area and
Right,
Main Street?
right.
Can you
So-
talk about that?
Right, so part of our, you know, sublease obligations that we propose to make were architectural improvements to all of Main Street, retail frontage. Some of the first things that jumped out at us were a signage that needs improvement, lighting that needs improvement, storefronts that haven't been repaired in decades. We find that the retail corridor in Roosevelt Landings and Westview is kind of dark, and it's hard to, when you're just walking down the corridor, it's hard to even know where the stores are unless you already know where you're going. So some things that we've proposed are new lighting in Roosevelt Landings. That's what we've identified 568 Main Street, the old flower store, as a location to do a prototype of our new improvements that we're planning, to make sure that we like them and that
When are you
everything.
doing that?
Well, it's a little behind schedule, but we hope to start in the next week or two, actually. So we are planning to demolish the glass partition that's in front of the store, which we feel blocks views of the storefront and makes it very hard to kind of to look across the street and see what's happening in the retail storefronts.
You're gonna remove glass, you're gonna remove the brick that's around it,
Just
or the cement, whatever.
the glass and the planter.
But, I mean, how can,
It's not gonna make a difference.
yeah, how does glass block the view?
Because if you're standing across Main Street, you see, actually, if you try to look through that glass, you see glare, and the glass is also relatively dirty, and it's hard to maintain, and honestly, we don't think it.
So you're just
it-
leaving whatever is a structural
Yeah,
pillar.
yeah. Yeah.
But we're gonna miss that. I mean, many of us, we don't care.
I must say that just last Sunday I used it when it was raining and it
Yeah,
was
we
raining
use
at
it.
home. We
I mean,
used
the
it.
people use
We
it.
ran under each.
Yeah, we cross.
We're not proposing to, in any place where we would remove a bench, we would propose to replace it with a new bench. So we're not proposing to remove any
It's
seating.
not, it's
They're
not
talking about
benches.
the
I
glass.
think what,
The glass
what
cover.
is being
Rain,
missed
wind,
is that,
snow.
even though I understand what you're saying, I think it's fairly unattractive looking. But what happens is, when the wind blows and there's, when there's a really good storm, people do go into that tunnel area,
Mhm.
especially at the arcade, especially on the eastwood side,
Mhm.
to get out of the rain, because we've been in storms where it's blowing right into that area, and where it's not covered, you're getting soaked.
Mhm.
So that glass sort of acts as a, cover.
And in
But-
actuality, the people who live here know the stores that are there. You don't have to advertise that there's a
Yeah.
store there. You're not gonna get a lot of traffic from Long Island City and Manhattan to come here. So, you don't really, they don't need to advertise that they're there. And if glass is kept clean, which REAC should do, I think that should be up to REAC, we can talk to them about that. You can see through it, but people walk there all the time. The people who are gonna walk there on the other side of the street that you wanna see through are gonna walk on that side too. I mean, I don't see the difference, and I think you're taking away protection that a lot of people appreciate.
We got to consider that this is an island and it creates a wind tunnel because we have this canyon of building. It's a very unique situation. We are surrounded by open water around us. So it plays a role.
No store's gonna be hidden here. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
such thing as not knowing where a store is. What's happening with the thrift store?
They're staying there for now. We haven't talked to them about anything yet.
They're staying there, that big store?
Yeah, I mean, maybe eventually we may figure out a better place for them, but they're not.
Is the church paying that rent, or how is that working?
The thrift store is currently occupying that space without paying any rent.
Oh, but you're letting the church go free and not letting the Galleria go for free? Why?
I'm not saying the thrift store will be there forever. I'm just saying it's not our priority right now.
But this could go on though for a while, and yet you're putting the screws on the gallery.
Well,
That doesn't make, that's
Which
unfair.
adds a great deal more to the island
Than the thrift store.
You come back in a few months, the thrift store may have the screws put on them, but it's not our priority right now.
One of the things that I did like
Let me
about.
finish, let me just explain more about the thrift store. It's not our priority to beat up on existing tenants while we have so many vacant spaces. But we understand that the gallery wants the legitimacy of a real lease. I don't feel like the thrift store is actually in the same position. I don't think they can step up to the legitimacy of a real lease, and we haven't. It hasn't been our priority to have that conversation with them.
The gallery is having a hard time, you're putting them in a frenzy. They're two totally different situations. The gallery wants a lease because originally they were really concerned and they were afraid that they were gonna be moved and either moved to, a
Upstairs
second
or
floor
final floor.
somewhere that, it's important for a gallery to be at a storefront, just like any other store. Because they're not a retail space, I'm not speaking for the gallery, but my knowledge of what I know is what's going on with the gallery is that, of course, they want to be a storefront, and I would think they're thinking that if they had a lease, that it's protection, that you wouldn't either, ask them to leave or put them in a second floor space somewhere where they're not seen. So you can't compare the gallery to the thrift store. I mean,
I brought up the gallery because you guys brought up the gallery. Why were we putting the thumb screws on the gallery and not the thrift store? So let's just talk about either the gallery or the thrift store if you don't want to compare them. Which would you like to talk about?
I'd like to talk about the gallery.
Okay.
And, well, I put in the comparison because you said you're not putting this, you're just leaving them as is. They have a huge space, they're not giving any money, but yet it's a totally different situation for the gallery. You're asking them to pay money that they can't afford right now. And
there are different needs. And I do know, of course, you want to make money, so why is the thrift shop, why is that untouchable?
I didn't say it was untouchable, I said it's not our priority right now.
That was one of the first things Andrew said, that it wasn't their priority to evict.
I know, but I thought the
to evict-
priority is to rent
Hold on,
the
to evict
rent
existing
space.
tenants. Okay, I think they're gonna try and do their best to manage a situation that is in dire need of managing, okay? So first things first, does Riva wanna stay? If they wanna stay, well, then they have to join, modern day, and they have to understand that
And
this
they
is a
know
business.
that and expect
This
it
is a business
and
at the end of the
plan
day,
on it.
and I know nothing about this, other than what I'm hearing both sides say, and to me, I take exception to what you're saying. If they want to stay, they have to pay, okay? And he said, Andrew, also already stated that, they're working with them, in terms of which they're not sure what they're gonna be just yet, but they're trying to work with them so that they can stay, and it can be affordable for them, and give them an opportunity to take their business as it was, which was nonprofit, and now make it a profit, and give them the opportunity to make money to pay the rent, as any gallery would have to do, I mean, all those galleries downtown in the village, they pay rent, and they pay a huge rent. So, it's all about now getting a lot of these people, it could even be the thrift store, up to speed. Let's get them
I also
to
assume
make this
that
happen.
the reason you focused more on the gallery than the thrift store is that it's a much more valuable space, because
Well, they're both-
it's not behind the protected glass, it's
I
on a
mean,
corner.
both spaces have their different pros. All I can say is over time, every single tenant, our intention is to bring them into either a place of legitimacy where they're paying, they have a real lease, they're paying something like a real rent, unless for some reason we feel like they deserve a discount because they're an asset to the community, like Gallery Riva. Or, if they're not gonna kind of be able to step into this professional situation, we're gonna move to evict. But it hasn't been our priority to make any of those movements yet, because we have all these vacant spaces. We wanna make some positive steps first before we, go pick some battles that may be unpopular.
I can't say at all that anybody would be happy to hear that they've evicted the thrift store right off the bat. I mean, certainly if somebody comes in and wants that space and they're willing to pay top dollar for it, then they would have to be moved,
But we have-
right now,
that
there's
situation-
nobody knocking down the
That
door here
situation
for these
hasn't
Why
come
not
up.
spaces,
just
yeah.
move them into a smaller area?
It's possible, that situation hasn't come up yet, If we had a strong offer on that space, we would give the thrift store a chance to match it, which I'm sure they probably would not. We haven't had that conversation yet, but it doesn't stretch the imagination to think that it may make more sense to move them somewhere else. We don't know yet. But all I can say is that, we made a conscious decision to focus on leasing up the vacant spaces first, on legitimizing the tenants who want to stay and, like Riva. And there are not just the thrift store, but there are a number of tenants who I don't need to name, who aren't exactly current with their rent. Eventually, we'll get around to dealing with them. Right now, we haven't beat them up too much. That may change over time.
Did you, I'm
It's a
sorry,
process.
you discussed this before I got here, did you discuss trellis at all?
Only just,
They have a
one,
handshake.
There's a handshake too.
Just a handshake
in the
agreement?
briefest of terms, yeah. We have a handshake to extend his lease. We're asking him to make improvements to the
Right.
store.
And is it your expectation that he's really able to make those improvements?
I don't see any reason why it couldn't.
Is there a timetable that he has to make them, or the
Uh,
handshake is no more?
Nothing specific, but if we don't have we need to have a signed lease with him sooner rather than later.
What's stopping him from going from the handshake to the signed lease?
Right now the lease is in his court, he's reviewing it.
Right, it's in
so-
his court, that's what you're
Yes,
saying.
we've sent him a draft lease, and it takes a while to negotiate these, because they're like, 90 pages long.
And also regarding the two new food establishments are gonna be in Rivercross, correct? European and Subway?
Yes. they're-
Correct.
And then there's the organic deli in Roosevelt Island.
No, but as far as just specific to Rivercross.
Yeah.
What's happening with timing of hours? It's directly under people's windows.
Right.
How late will it be open? What about, there's no AVAC there, so
What about garbage collection out front?
Mhm.
What about fumes of
Well, we,
food?
as far as River Cross goes, those two tenants specifically don't have, they don't have any high temperature cooking equipment. They do some baking of bread on the premises, and that's it. So we don't expect, they don't have any fryers,
So
for
you don't
example.
expect a fume problem?
They don't have any fryers, they don't have,
That would be a good fume, but
Yeah.
fresh
It's a good
baked
fume.
bread.
most people would
Right.
agree with that. You know, they don't, here's what they don't have. They don't have fryers, they don't have griddles, they don't have like big ovens and stuff
You know,
like
it's a
that.
complicated problem because Roosevelt Island needs, I would say, food establishments more than anything. Restaurants or places to buy different kinds of food. Yet, none of the stores are on AVAC. So we're not used to big piles of garbage collection
Yeah.
out on our streets. I see it down here, outside your restaurants. That makes me, I mean, I don't know how to solve that problem. We
Well,
want
the way it's-
food,
the
but
way
we
it's gotta
don't
work-
want rodent garbage on the street.
Yeah, the way it's gotta work here is the way it works in the rest of the city, where commercial tenants have private carting. I know that our restaurant tenants here coordinate, they have the same carting company to minimize the number of pickups.
Right.
And most, from what I understand, most, you know, for example, restaurants they put their garbage out at 10 PM, it gets carted away at 11 PM. That's the way it's supposed to
That's
work.
what happens with trellis, I think.
That's-
There's somebody
and-
who comes to get trellis and
Yeah.
also at the
And it's-
It's
Well,
gonna,
D.
it's going to be an evolution. I mean,
Well, that's-
it was here
Yeah.
in Southtown. I mean, we had garbage across the street, pickup, and then it transferred to the other side, but there's gonna be buildings there
Yeah.
eventually, so,
But
you know, it's
the
a moving
difference with
target.
Southtown is that your restaurants are not right on the street the way these will be on
They're gonna have to
our
put their
part of Main
garbage on the
Street.
curb.
Right, so there's, you know, you've got
On one street?
a very narrow street, here's the store, here's the street where we walk home,
Right.
and
That's a
here's the
problem.
garbage. So,
Well-
all I'm asking you is, yes, we need food service, but make sure that you keep a tight rein on the garbage collection, that they don't abuse it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
AVAC
Well,
would be-
wouldn't, but, you know,
So
I'm
fabulous.
hoping that you, as the leaseholder, will make sure that these food stores really comply with the most efficient, cleanest way to dispose of
Yeah,
their
I mean,
garbage.
our understanding, and this is in everybody's lease, is they're responsible, you know, we make them responsible for their trash, of course, but we expect that they have a private carting company, their trash goes out at, you know, it doesn't stay out for more than like an hour or
But
two.
do you coordinate that with them? You say
No,
that
it's
the
up-
trash has to be,
It's
I
up,
mean,
we don't tell them which carting company to use or when to do their pickup, but we just say it can only be out for, I think,
But,
you know.
why couldn't you determine what the time of pickup would be? Because it might be that there's a big pile of garbage outside at 8 o'clock from one store and a big pile of garbage out at another store at 9 o'clock and a big cart, you know, so that means there's always garbage out, no matter when I'm walking by. So wouldn't it make sense to have all the pickups at the same time?
Is it possible for you to get any of these new enterprises to actually coordinate with, say, the trellises pickup and other pickups to?
Yeah,
make
we
sure
could, we
that
could
they
encourage
coordinate?
that. All I can say is up till now, we have not gotten into too much detail in that in our leases.
That's a problem.
I think,
that
I
you
honestly
guys
think
should be
because
dealing
they're
with
right on a
as
street
the
and it's
ones.
a relatively
Yeah.
narrow sidewalk, I think it will be a problem unless it's all done around the same time.
Let's just say this for the moment, that because there are not stores in place yet, you don't really know what the needs and the garbage conditions are gonna be, and how they'll be dealt with. Maybe you might be able to
Well,
do
we
it,
do
do
know
in,
though,
do
we
in
do
Northtown.
know that there will be daily garbage.
Right, but you don't know to
for
what
food
degree. I
store.
mean, certainly there's gonna be different garbage output for
You
a
know,
restaurant
these-
versus
Well, how
a
about
stationary
let's
store.
just say that this may really be an issue that needs to be,
I'm not
that needs
worried
to be
about
dealt
garbage from the
with.
beauty parlor, I'm not worried about garbage from an office that's there or from Gallery Riva. We have 2 food stores, there might be more coming, and it's a narrow street, and a lot of people walk there, a lot of people. Everybody
You know,
who lives
we
north
can-
walks
We can
home there.
encourage the tenants to coordinate their carting, and it actually makes sense for them, because they could probably save money doing it that way. Right now, the way the leases are written, I don't have any way to force them to use a certain company at a certain time.
Can I just-
I'm sorry.
I just want to know, has it occurred to you that if South Ferrera builds his theater performance arts center, how it may affect 2 very beloved institutions, the Main Street Dance Theater and the Gallery? I mean, that it,
No.
You don't think it would have any effect on those two much beloved?
Why would it? No.
Well, because he's opening up for the evening, so there'll be classes could be held in the evening free of charge.
So that's more classes.
Well, people would maybe rather not pay money and leave the Main Street Dance Theater.
That's competition.
Well,
Yeah.
That's not, that would not be my concern at all.
Andrew, I have a question about traffic generation and about the way the island is set up and works, and I want to lay a foundation for the question that everybody here will understand, but I want to make sure we're talking in the same general ballpark. There is the problem, as you, I'm sure you know now, that for the most part, people who live in the Riverwalk buildings don't really go north, because there's nothing to call them north. They don't have things that make them want to go north particularly. The Octagon people tend to bust through, and the retail shops and restaurants on Main Street in that section of town have been largely dependent upon the tenants in the 4 wire buildings. So there's a question about what you think is going to, one part of this question is to ask you what you think will develop in terms of items, stores, whatever, will call those folks north and south to that part of town, number one. Number two, what do you think is going to be the ultimate mix of off-island traffic combined with on-island traffic coming to that space? And then finally, I'm wondering if you've considered creating a traffic generator. One that has occurred to me, for example, is the notion of using the old Montauk Credit Union space as a place where people can stop by and pick things up, like information about Main Street Theater, information about RIRA, information, a map of the island, that sort of thing. And with the notion that that might, something like it, might create a traffic generator to bring people north from Riverwalk buildings and to bring people south from the Octagon, to encourage them to get off the bus.
Yeah.
Have you given thought to those?
Yes, we've given a lot of thought to those. So I understand the premise of your first question, and that was our assumption when we started this. The assumption being that Riverwalk people didn't go into Northtown too much, and Octagon people bust through. I can't speak about the Octagon people because we know Riverwalk a little better, but we did at least 1 or 2 focus groups here, and I think Rick might have been at one of them, just with the Riverwalk residents, because we happen to know a lot of them personally, and we said, you know, what do you guys want to see on Main Street? And this is at the same time we were doing other outreach to the Octagon and our other public meetings. But we were pleasantly surprised that the Riverwalk residents go to Main Street extensively. This kind of surprised us.
They
but
use the theater, a lot of
they
kids.
use everything on Main Street. They go to the post office, they go to the bank, you know, they go to the deli, they
To the
go
farmer's market.
they go to the beauty salon. They in fact go to the nail salon up there versus the one here because they like her better. You know, they're for all.
That's good, we're glad that.
Right, so there were all sorts of reasons that we just assumed that the Riverwalk people just go to the subway, they go to, you know, whatever, you know, we were relatively small-minded in our perceptions. So we were pleasantly surprised that.
I appreciate what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I've lived here for 30 years. I don't see it. I have not seen a single change in a single restaurant, in a single store. I don't see
Notice I didn't mention
anybody
the
from
restaurant.
Southtown. I don't see anybody in Southtown in any of those stores. I see all I see all of you.
No, that's not true.
To
Just
wrap up,
don't
the-
see
Yeah,
I
we're
think
self-targeting.
that's,
Okay,
yeah,
let's-
that's not,
so-
that's not the case.
So anyway, we,
It's not true.
to answer the question that Dick posed, there are a few tenants who we would love to have who we think would be destination tenants that people would go to no matter where they were on the island. One would be like a pet store. If you have a pet, you're gonna take your dog to get groomed no matter where they are on Main Street. You know, something like ice cream, people will walk for, especially Matt. You know, so we have actually thought we thought very carefully about where to put tenants like that so that we get a good balance of foot traffic and sort of prominence on Main Street. Also, another balance we have to strike is food uses. The spaces in Roosevelt Landings are much more easily vented than any of the other spaces, and the owners of that building are more sort of pro restaurants. So we have steered our possible restaurant tenants towards Roosevelt Landings. And then your second question about other destinations, we haven't thought about the old Montauk Credit Union as anything other than a kind of normal retail spot. It may be that something like that comes up. One thing we are working on is an island-wide signage program, so that when people take the tram or they get